With the recent announcement of 2 spin-offs to the latest The Batman movie, it got me thinking, are there too many spin-offs in general? Now, of course, this is a movie that has only just come out, The Batman, and they've already announced that there's going to be 2 spin-offs for it. There's one called The Penguin, which we kind of already knew about like a couple of weeks ago. There's going to be a spin-off about the Penguin, cool, whatever. But they've already announced there's going to be another one called Arkham Asylum, which is going to be obviously set and based on the inmates of Arkham Asylum, but that was originally going to be a spin-off series about the Gotham City Police Department, but it got changed because it didn't sound interesting enough. So now we've got 2 spin-offs for a movie that's just come out. And when it comes to spin-offs, I'm not just talking DC, I'm talking quite a lot of franchises, quite a lot of the big ones. For example, Star Wars, Marvel, and The Walking Dead. There is spin-offs galore, there's so much stuff in the works, so much stuff planned, and I'm sort of almost overwhelmed by the amount of content we're getting, and it makes me question if it's all even stuff we want or need. I mean, talking of The Walking Dead, they recently announced another spin-off for the characters Maggie and Negan. Now, we are in the final season of the show, it hasn't ended yet, we're unsure of which characters are going to live and die, and then they've announced a spin-off show starring Maggie and Negan, so that then tells us that those 2 characters aren't going to die. And this spin-off is to go along with several other spin-offs, some that are out and some that haven't even been released yet. Listen to this list. So you've got the Walking Dead main show, you've got Fear the Walking Dead, you've got a show called World Beyond, you've got Tales of the Walking Dead, you've got a Daryl and Carol spin-off, that's 2 more that are probably going to survive. You've got Isle of the Dead, you've got an Untitled villain spin-off, you've got an Untitled comedy spin-off, and then you've got a Rick Grimes movie trilogy. Out of that list, 3 of those things currently exist, I think. 3 of them, yeah, 3 on that list. The rest, I mean, who knows if they'll even happen, but that is a huge list, and it makes you question where that priority is at, because the quality of the main show isn't all that great anyway, and maybe this is why. Of course, on top of DC and The Walking Dead, you have Star Wars. That's a big one now. They've really branched out into the TV world. They're sort of cutting away from movies, and the TV, of course, includes Obi-Wan. No complaints there, however. Andor, Ahsoka, Mandalorian Season 3, no complaints. Rangers of the New Republic, Lando, The Acolyte, and A Droid Story. Ooh, it's a mouthful. But before we talk about Star Wars, let's talk about the Marvel spin-offs and TV shows that they've got planned. We've got Moon Knight, Miss Marvel, She-Hulk, Secret Invasion, Ironheart, Armor Wars, I Am Groot, a Wakanda show, Okoye, Echo series, Agatha Harkness, and then some animations as well. When I said Echo series, I mean a series about Echo. All the things I just listed are TV shows. It's ridiculous. Echo, awful villain. Agatha Harkness, awful villain. Why are they making that? Although, of course, for Marvel, not all of those are necessarily spin-offs. They are origin stories for characters they're trying to introduce into the MCU, because they're no longer doing it all through movies, it seems. But of course, with all the MCU shows that have been released so far, they've actually been based on existing characters. So with the first one we're getting, which is coming out soon, is Moon Knight. That'll be the first one that's actually introducing a new character. However, some of the shows, of course, are being based on existing characters we sort of know of, and for the life of me, I can't understand why they're making a series about it. Like I said, such as Echo, who was the villain in Hawkeye, a very poor villain, one that I didn't care for or thought was good at all or interesting. Agatha Harkness, who was just awful in WandaVision, really, really poor. And then I Am Groot. I mean, don't get me wrong, we all love Groot, but does he warrant a show? Probably not. Star Wars is a bit similar. I mean, it doesn't bother me so much with Star Wars because they've proved that they are, under Disney at least, that they are incapable pretty much of making movies, except Rogue One, which is the only one I'd say was very good. But with TV shows, they're definitely better. You know, Mandalorian Season 1 and 2 were awesome. Book of Boba Fett was a bit iffy, but it was decent still. And then you've got Obi-Wan on the way, which looks awesome. And honestly, most of the shows they've got lined up, you know, upcoming stuff, they do actually seem quite appealing based on the characters, such as Obi-Wan. Ahsoka is one that intrigues me. Another season of The Mandalorian intrigues me. This show called Acolyte, apparently that's to do with Sith during the High Republic era, so that's prequel era, which is a time we all want to see about, you know, we all kind of want to explore, so that's definitely an appealing one. But some of the other stuff, you know, like a Droid Story and Andor, it's a little bit, do we really want it? You know, Rangers of the New Republic, another thing, that's just something to tie into the Mandalorian universe, another perspective, I guess, but I don't think there's necessarily going to be characters in there that we find all that interesting. Of course, Star Wars isn't the one that's concerning me the most. It is mostly The Walking Dead. If you've watched it or you've seen it at all, you know that the quality of the show has deteriorated over time. It kind of, when it got to season 7 and 8, it did start to drop off quite significantly. 9, not great as well. It's kind of picked itself back up again for these final seasons, but it's still nothing compared to how it used to be. So therefore, I can't understand how they warrant 1 spin-off, let alone 8 overall that they've got planned, when the quality of the main show is struggling enough as it is, and you know, the viewership, I imagine, is way down from what it used to be. Of course, this Rick Grimes trilogy does intrigue me. I mean, spoiler alert, he disappears in the show. We know he's alive, but he just sort of disappears, and they've said, oh yeah, we're going to make a trilogy about him. So in a sense, that kind of removes a lot of hope for viewers that he would return in the show, which is what we were all hoping for, and what would kind of make it all worthwhile, because he was the main character of the show. So it would be great to have him back for this final season that we're in. But because they've announced a trilogy, it's probably not going to happen. And you know, stuff like that, just revealing upcoming shows about certain characters kind of ruins the whole thing of like who's going to live and who's going to die in the final season. You know, Daryl, Carol, Maggie, Negan, Rick, okay, they're all going to be alright. Back to DC, god, it's just like a merry-go-round of a shit show. But yeah, back to DC, they currently have 4 universes going on at the same time right now. They have the DCEU, which is, you know, the stuff like Man of Steel and Black Adam and Aquaman, all that. Then you've got the Snyderverse, which is basically the DCEU movies that Zack Snyder directed, such as Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and Justice League, but the good one. However, it's a separate universe because his Justice League is not considered canon, but the original Justice League, the god-awful piece of shit movie, is considered part of the canon. So therefore, those 2 movies are separate timelines, separate universes, whatever. Alongside that, you of course have the Joker movie, which was like a standalone thing, but there's always talk of sequels with that. And then of course you've got this new The Batman universe that has 2 spin-off shows already planned. Of course the DCEU is a bit of a mess, but James Gunn is actually making good quality content in there with his Suicide Squad movie and the Peacemaker spin-off show, which was actually very, very good. Warner Brothers are unlikely to make any more movies with Zack Snyder at the helm, even though we all would really like a Justice League 2 because of what Justice League, the first one, set up. But it seems unlikely that they'll work with him again, in all honesty. Joker, for me, should remain as a standalone flick because I don't want any sequel to sort of tarnish what that first film did, which was outstanding, incredible movie. And then, for me, The Batman, which I really enjoyed, I thought it was a really great film. I think it should actually just stay as a movie trilogy, like The Dark Knight and stuff. I don't know, I mean, you just know today that if the Dark Knight movies like Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, Dark Knight Rises were coming out now, there is no way they would just be a movie thing. There would be like spin-offs being made as we speak about, you know, Heath Ledger or Two-Face or Scarecrow or Catwoman or something. Like, they'd be making all those spin-offs. But I kind of prefer like a contained trilogy. I just feel like it would work better for this Batman universe that they've now created. But if it's just going to be a Batman only universe and spin-offs and stuff like that, then maybe it could work. What I will say is though, it seems like studios are so afraid of not filling like every single gap and every single detail about a universe that they start, such as the Batman. They're so obsessed with like, oh, people don't know enough about the Penguin, we need to show stuff about the Penguin. It's like, is it necessary? It seems like they'll make a show for anyone and anything, any gap that hasn't been filled, because they're worried that people will lose interest. And of course for moviegoers this can make things tricky, because you go to see The Batman and then you're like, wow, that was an awesome movie, I look forward to seeing the second one. And then the second one comes out and you're like, I don't really understand what's going on, because you've missed 3 TV shows that have come out in between that were crucial to setting up this second movie. I mean, I think for The Batman it was very intriguing on its own. It wasn't something that really warranted or required spin-offs. I wouldn't watch that movie and say, damn, we really need a spin-off for like The Penguin or Arkham Asylum. I think the intrigue is what keeps it a little more interesting, you know, wondering what's going to happen in the next movie, because it's kind of like anything could happen. They could do anything in that next movie. They really could. They could take it in any direction they want to, but with making spin-offs, you are setting up what you have to show in the next movie, because now you're not just thinking about what you did in the first film, you're thinking about what you did in both the spin-offs. So therefore you've got to be like, shit, alright, I've got to take those things into consideration as well. I think it almost limits the creativity on the next project. But to me it seems like DC want to make a extended universe that people actually like. The DCEU has not caught on very well, especially compared to the MCU. So it seems like they're just sort of rebooting and restarting the DC universe until one finally catches on. So maybe this new The Batman one is going to be their new extended universe, because it's never as simple as let's just make a good movie or a good couple movies. It's a case of how do we build a big universe, and I imagine that's what they're doing here. It seems like they're just doing a hard reset. Maybe they even want to phase out their current DCEU. Or, in fact, what they're probably doing is like, let's just have loads of DC universes going at the moment until each one is generating a fair amount of money, so that 4 DC universes are better than 1 MCU. Which kind of says it all about how well the MCU is doing. Although even so, Marvel currently have 2 universes going at the moment with the Sonyverse, which is Venom, Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, Mobius, whatever the frick his name is. But of course, talking to Marvel, and along with Star Wars, I'd say these new projects they've got upcoming, such as, like She-Hulk, or Moon Knight, whatever, or Obi-Wan even, and the Boba Fett show we recently had, 5 to 10 years ago, they wouldn't have been TV shows, they would have been a movie, easily. Because there was always a lot of rumours, like not too long ago, where it's like, oh, there's going to be a Boba Fett movie, there's going to be an Obi-Wan movie. Now with how easy it seems to be to just make a TV show and get it on a streaming service, it seems like a much easier process than trying to get it in a movie theatre. It just seems like a case of, okay, well, we can have an endless list of shows about characters that we want to show off. So that's kind of why it's so easy, and there's so much stuff lined up these days. I mean, when it comes to the end, I'm not necessarily criticising the fact that there are lots of spin-offs and stuff planned. I mean, it's a great time to be a fan of these franchises because you've just got so much stuff to watch and you don't have to wait so much. But in a sense, I think waiting is also necessary to sort of build intrigue and, just kind of build some excitement and hype around an upcoming project. But like I said, for Marvel and Star Wars, it does make sense. I don't really have much of an issue with that. I think it does make sense because Star Wars have proven they're better at TV, and Marvel are using TV as a platform to expand their universe, even though I haven't really enjoyed much of the MCU shows apart from Loki. When it comes to The Walking Dead, I am a big fan of the show, even if it did fall off pretty badly in around season 8 and 9. But I think they really need to focus on their main show. That's what they should have been doing this whole time, because they've kind of had like 3 shows running at the same time for maybe the past 4 or 5 years, which I'm not sure how much of a factor it is, but it seems to have maybe had an effect on the main show, because that's when it kind of started to fall off and just become less interesting when they had just one thing, The Walking Dead. What a great show that was for the first... I mean, you could say the first 7 seasons were great, but the first 3 were just incredible. DC is a tricky one. As I said, DC is a mess. I enjoyed the Peacemaker spin-off, but is that just mostly down to James Gunn because of how talented a creator is? But however, Matt Reeves is a great director, and I hear he's actually going to be the one in charge of the Batman spin-offs. But of course, always the risk with TV show spin-offs is if they're not very good, it can make people lose a bit of interest, a bit of hype for an upcoming sequel, and then maybe people feel like, oh god, I have to watch these 2 TV shows before I can watch the sequel. Does that affect it in that way? Honestly, overall, I think for all these things, some of the spin-offs and original TV shows and whatnot have been a blessing. They have been really special, such as The Mandalorian. I'm hoping Obi-Wan's going to be the same, but like movies, like the movies that have been released, half a hit, half a miss. Sometimes more miss than hit. But the difference is more TV can be pumped out. TV shows can be made more frequently. It doesn't seem like we ever go more than 3 to 4 weeks without a new show streaming. Whether it be Marvel and Star Wars on Disney Plus, or whether it be, a DC spin-off. But like I said, you can milk the TV thing more, you can release more, therefore there's more of a chance of something landing and something being good, but there's also the ratio is worse, because you're going to get maybe 2 good shows out of 10 rather than 1 good movie out of 3. I think it also makes it hard for new fans. If you're trying to get into the MCU, if you're trying to get into DC, God, good luck with that. If you're trying to get into Star Wars, if you're trying to get into The Walking Dead, you could just see the roster and be like, what the fuck? What order do I watch it in? I mean, a lot of people don't bother with the whole TV show thing. They just want to go watch the movie, and then when they do, they're a bit like, what the hell is going on? you know, it seems like they've maybe missed a whole chapter, even if they've watched every movie, because they haven't watched the shows in between. I mean, my verdict is that less can sometimes be better. You know, wait a bit, leave some intrigue, build some intrigue. I think the perfect example of that would be the Book of Boba Fett, which kind of ruined intrigue for Mandalorian Season 3. I think it is good to keep fans waiting, but it seems like studios are so fearful of, like, losing fan interest and thinking that they're gonna go, like, watch something else and lose interest because it's been, like, 6 months without, like, a Star Wars show or movie, or 6 months without a Marvel show or movie. They think, God, we've got to just give them something. We got to keep them on the hook. We got to keep them, you know, coming after the bait, even if it isn't all that interesting. You know, we've just got to keep them in line, keep them close. But this is where it's at now. They want to make anything and everything they can, which is great for a viewer, but also a little bit because you never know what sort of quality you're actually going to end up getting. That's just my thoughts I wanted to share about everything, because there's so many spin-offs and whatnot going on at the moment that it's just crazy. Let me know what you think about it if you've got an opinion on that. I've been Joe Squared. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.